Hi, guys. Hi, everyone. You need to be wearing your headphones to hear this session, if you can't hear me. I feel like I'm doing an air hostess. There's no audio here, guys, so please do put your headphones on. People over here, hello. Guys, there's no audio, so you have to wear your headsets for this one. If you're not already, they're on your seat, amazing. There's no, because there's no speakers. Yeah. Headsets on if you can't hear us. Hey folks, you need to be wearing your headsets to hear this one if you have. Sorry. Thank you very much. Yeah, please. Come and join us. We'll start because people are kind of getting their headphones on. If you're joining us late, please put your headsets on. That's the only way you can hear us, unfortunately. Headsets, everyone. Does anyone else need a headset? Everyone got a headset? 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 Okay. We don't need headsets. Shall we begin? So people have to wear their headsets to hear us for this one. There's no audio beyond.
Okay.
There we go. Can you hear us? Yeah, there we go. Great, great, great. Thank you very much. A big welcome to the From Set to Screen session. This is an insight into the global shift in sustainability for the film industry, which opens up our Film for Change program on the rather beautiful balcony stage at Change Now. We have an incredible panel for you this afternoon. Emma Stewart joins us, Amy Redford, and Annabel Jones. Give them a round of applause. Yeah, there we go. There they are. Looking lovely. Well done, well done. Welcome all. We've got the kind of full spectrum of production here, from inception to filmmaking to producing to scripting, right through to the Netflix commission at the end, hopefully. So I figured that was a good place to start, ladies. When, from the filmmaking and the producing side of things, how does it work for you? How much has sustainability become a part of your daily lives? How many scripts are you seeing in this? How many filmmakers and creatives are approaching you with ideas like this? Annabel, you're one of the producers of Toxic Town, which is one of Netflix's big hits at the moment. Is that something you're seeing more of?
That is a lot of questions.
Sorry, yes, it was.
Oh my God. I don't know if I'm seeing any more. What can I say? I think to maybe answer the broader question, you have to start with a compelling story. And if you don't have that, and if you don't have that dramatic pull, then you can't tell. You can tell a story about climate change, but no one will watch it. So for me personally, it's very much about trying to find a compelling way in. And so for me, it's story first, and then hopefully you sort of, you pepper it with lots of interesting environmental themes, and before you know it, everyone's watching it in a way that maybe they wouldn't have if I'd have said, this is about climate change.
And was that the case for Toxic Town? Because that's a story predominantly about something really bad that happened in the UK, true story. What kind of came first, the story or the...
So Toxic Town, the show on Netflix, is probably a different example because it's a factual drama, so a real-life story that happened in the UK that was grossly underreported. No one knew about it, and yet it was one of the biggest, well, it was the biggest environmental disasters in the UK, and one of the biggest cases of child poisoning. So it felt like a very important story to tell. But actually, and when I researched the story, you could see that it had a very human element, and it was a huge, complex story about how communities struggle when they're struggling economically, and how you respond, and the potential dangers within that. It was also the first, I don't know if anyone knows about it, but it was about a huge reclamation project about moving toxic waste, and the process took 15 years, and as a result, during that time, a mushroom cloud of toxicity hung over this town and poisoned the whole population. I mean, it just seems unfathomable that that would happen in, you know, in England in the 1990s, yet it did, and yet no one knows about it. And it was the first time in the world, so the legal case took 10 years to prove, because of course, as we all know, with environmental disasters, historic ones, there is no evidence, it's very hard to get the evidence to prove it. So there were lots of really interesting strands in the story that I wanted to tell, and then you just try and find that structure that you follow the characters all the way through, and you feel that sort of David Goliath moment. And I think you try. And I think what also I liked about the story was that it was ultimately uplifting. You know, it is the story of hope, and I think we can do with a little bit more of that in the world at the moment.
We certainly could. Amy, is that something you've experienced as well in terms of filmmaking and producing? Are you seeing more and more of these scripts, these stories coming your way as well?
I'm seeing the same kind of dynamic that you're talking about, which is sort of Trojan horsing ideas in through especially genre. You know, you're using, you know, I'm working on one right now that's kind of going in through the true crime genre, just so that you are meeting people where they're at. And I think we've gotten a little bit better to not be quite so medicinal about some of these storylines, and it's incredibly important to be able to, you know, project across lines of consciousness. And I think also something that is incredibly important in today's consciousness is integrating the people of the communities into the storytelling and into the filmmaking, understanding how to not just be an extractive process, an extractive set, but something that you're actually contributing towards, and understanding some of the sensitivities in terms of integrating those people, you know, into some of the writing. And I think that there is a collective awareness that is also part of the domain of the young. People my age didn't really come up with many solutions, and I feel like there's a bit of, you know, kind of taking of the reins, both in narrative and also in solution. I mean, you look around this room and this incredible entrepreneurial chaos, which I find, like to your point, incredibly hopeful.
And Emma, from your perspective, I mean, the sort of Netflix end of the scale, how involved are you, at what sort of stage do you guys get involved with these sort of conversations? Is it something that only comes your way when a commission is commissioned, or are you involved in the kind of pre-production as well?
The sustainability program at Netflix has the privilege of supporting our titles from script to screen, or from pitch to play, choose your phrasing. So we support our creators as they are going through the messy creative process that Annabel knows so well. And we do so through creative consultation and fact-checking. Then we support them through the production phase, so pre-production and physical production, post-production. And then for select titles, we support them through the launch and the campaign, working together with our marketing and title teams. So it really is a life cycle approach, but also just the sheer scale of the slate and the diversity of languages. Naturally, we can't support each and every title, much as we would love to. I brought you a few examples, if that's all right.
Yeah, please.
Of productions from different countries around Europe, and I deserve none of the credit for the work that I'm going to describe today, but some of the people are here today. Has anyone heard of the €1 villa program, where you can buy a villa in Europe for €1? A lot of nodding heads.
What?
So have a look at La Dolce Villa. This is a wonderful rom-com. It's very romantic, watch out. And in that, we helped that production reduce their diesel generator use significantly. And it was so appropriate because the storyline is about a woman who moves to Italy, buys a dilapidated villa for €1, and she retrofits it with sustainability really at the heart of her design. So if you're looking for a romantic Friday night in, I highly recommend that one.
Always.
Here in France, speaking of romance, we have a number of examples, including those of you who like a good mystery. Lupin, which is one of our wonderful mystery series. I see a lot of heads nodding about Lupin. That was actually the first production in France to use a hydrogen unit in the making of its production. And even the cast had a good chuckle over, wait, we're running off of hydrogen right now? And the crew loved this because it was so quiet compared to what they're used to with the diesel generators. And they could think for a moment, and they could also do away with all of the fumes, the nasty fumes that are unfortunately associated with the making of film and television. And they had a real giggle over making tea out of the only quote-unquote pollutant that comes from a hydrogen fuel cell, which is warm, clean water. It's actually the newest water on Earth because the molecules have literally been unified in the fuel cell. So those are two fun European examples of how we support the team.
Very cool. Actually, I wanted to pick up on something you mentioned during that, the pressures that things like diesel generators, the noise, the smells. Amy, we talked about this just before, and you were mentioning that it's something you don't really think about when you're watching a movie or a show, but that is quite a real, it sounds kind of a small thing, but it's a big deal, isn't it, on set?
It is. There's, I think, on sets often you'll have a set medic and you'll have, people that are watching out for people's safety, but often not for the collective nervous system of the set. And so now there's more integration in mental health professionals who are being able to sort of assess and diagnose what the collective nervous system is. And I feel like that is what the work that you're doing is so important, because there is even a subconscious understanding of the system that you're operating in. And for storytellers and for people that are coming together to do that, to be able to have a little bit more time and space and to understand what they're consuming isn't actually toxic, I think is better for the storytelling.
I wanted to, this maybe, feel free to jump in, whoever wants to talk about this one, but my question is around sort of audience expectations, and as people are becoming smarter and more engaged, you can just tell by looking around here. Do you think the expectations change for the kind of content they want to watch? Is there more appetite, have you seen throughout your careers, perhaps now than there was, or perhaps the opposite? I don't know.
I think as the world changed, audiences expect their dramas that they're seeing on their screens to reflect that world. And I suppose with every story, it's how much you bring that in. So I also make a show for Netflix called Black Mirror, and we... I hope that was praise.
That was a good thing, yeah. That wasn't.
Oh no. Oh, okay. I think that was good. What we do in many of the stories, which are some of them set in the future, is that we try and weave in those environmental themes into the background. So whether it's a detective genre episode, and you have, it's a world in which bees are extinct, and then you have drones that are acting and performing the task of bees to avoid an ecological crisis. That isn't the A story, but it's the backdrop, and you sort of just let it sit there and provide a sort of ominous backdrop for people to take away and think about quietly. And it's often in those quieter, calmer moments that have more impact. So I do try to weave it into our story, because that is the world.
It's so cool you get to do that for a job. I love that. I think that's series 2, isn't it, the B1? Yeah.
No, it's 3.
Is it 3? Oh.
Call yourself a fan. No. He's no fan.
I know what I'm doing on the Eurostar home. Amy, similar question for you. Have you noticed that shift in expectations either way?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of 2 organizations. One is called the Redford Center, and the Redford Center is one of the only organizations in the U.S. that is expressly focused on environmental films. And what they do is take a film not only from creation, they have a screening series, and they also do granting, and they also have impact campaign. And so I think that on the multifaceted approach, to be able to not only have the screening, but also what is the direct impact? You can watch something and be voyeuristic, but how do you then extend from just this sort of passive voyeuristic sort of experience and then get out into your community and do something proactive? And on the other side, with the Sundance Institute, being able to help creators be the best creator that they can be, refine their voices, understand what is it going to be like when they fling their stories out into the stratosphere, and how can they create a kind of, Teflon-ness around the thing that they're trying to tell. And so supporting the genesis of diverse and interesting storytellers is part of what is going to continue to make the landscape of storytelling more interesting. And I'm still a little triggered by all of the Black Mirror that I watch, so I kind of can't look at you right now.
It's because it turns out to be real. That's what's scary about it. You're kind of predicting the future years and years ago.
No, it's not okay.
How do you do that?
A lot of depressing reading.
Story for another day. Emma, my kind of similar question to you. Talking about the kind of changes that ladies mentioned there, how are you seeing that reflected in kind of the things Netflix is sort of saying yes to? Are you actively trying to make more of this kind of content?
Well, what our research shows is that audiences do enjoy this content. In fact, they kind of expect it because the world around them is changing, whether it's the transition to a clean economy or literally the changing climate and the fact that they can't experience the summer holiday without a heat wave. Or that the fact that 2/3 of the world's population has now witnessed climate change firsthand. So in order to represent that, creators are writing from their lived experience or their prescient reading in terms of Annabel's work. And we're seeing the viewership numbers of the Sustainability Stories collection at Netflix really reinforce that. So examples in that collection, which is now over 200 series and films large, include Sous la Seine, for the non-French speakers, that's Under Paris, a wonderful thriller horror film set here in Paris where climate change and ocean pollution leads the sharks to mutate. So they choose to move in and become residents of Paris under the Seine, much to the Parisians' dismay. There's a great example there that you wouldn't expect, perhaps, when you look up Sustainability Stories collection. Another French example is En Place, or in English, Represent, where a wonderful character from the suburbs of Paris runs for president of the Republic on the platform that everyone should have access to organic food. That's a justice story wrapped in a comedy. So again, you never see these things coming because, as Annabel and Amy were saying, this is about telling a good story.
Is that Black Mirror next season, mutated sharks? Got some inspiration there.
In Paris,
Yeah, in Paris,
we're cancelling the next season because Netflix
Quick,
have already
stop
made it.
production. I wanted to ask you, we haven't got long left, Sadie, about some of the challenges that we're facing. Amy, coming from the United States at the moment, there's obviously a lot going on. We won't get into that now, but...
You're welcome.
I did like the red hats that went past.
Yeah.
Is that potentially going to impact things like funds, grants that are available to keep making this kind of content? I don't know how much you want to go into that, but...
Yeah, I mean, I have to reach for hope, and I tend to try to find things that allow me to exist in my Pollyanna mindset, but I think that some of the grenades that are being thrown into the middle of what we all hold near and dear is creating unlikely bedfellows and coalition amongst people that normally don't talk to each other. And my hope is that in sort of realigning and appropriating some of our currency and our value, that we'll be able to figure out that we're all invested in different but important ways. It's frightening, because I think to erase all of the funding and to have people that are being individually targeted because of their work in this space creates a culture of fear. And right now I think we need more curiosity and less fear. Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen the full wave of it yet, but luckily a lot of people a lot smarter than me are out there really strategizing and understanding how to get out ahead of some of these new initiatives.
And great people like you guys will keep making this kind of content as long as you can, right? Yeah. Emma, we won't skirt for that in this case, but some of the challenges you face in a company like Netflix that's in so many territories, how do you ensure that these green policies, the sustainable filmmaking is implemented on that kind of scale?
It's uniquely interesting in a company that doesn't really believe in centralizing decision making. So Netflix as a service is available in 190 countries. We shoot both on set and on location in many in any given year. But if you read anything about our culture, we're big believers in local decision making. So we decentralize as much as we possibly can. The benefit of that being that we rely on our French team, as one example, to be the experts in their region. And what we can bring is some global reflections on what works on a set and what doesn't work so well. So the model, when I joined the entertainment sector 4 years ago, was, well, you just assign an intern to every production and the problem solves itself. Turns out that was not working. They were tasked with essentially manning the recycling bins. And in many places, recycling is not recycled. So poor things. Instead, we said, well, hang on, let's borrow from one of our strengths, which is understanding regional efficiencies. So we hired regional sustainability advisors who could look at a region as an ecosystem, who could understand all of the production vendors, and who could really bring the best of what the market to bear to a given production at the right moment on the right budget. And I can't tell you how important it is to hit both schedule and budget when you're making a film or a TV series. And in some instances where we are directly managing these productions, we found that even the vendor ecosystem wasn't rising to the occasion. So we partnered up with nonprofits and technology incubators to say, we actually have to send the strongest possible signal to these vendors that this is the future and we need them to come with us. And to do so, we actually have to put our own skin in the game and show them that we are willing to not just finance, but to guarantee rentals of some of this new technology if they're willing to take the financial risk to switch over their inventories. And just a few weeks ago, we had the first graduate technologies from the first cohort of the Clean Mobile Power Initiative do sandbox testing on the lot in Vancouver, Canada. And the crew found, they kicked the tires quite literally, that it worked well for them. And our job is to keep the crew happy and the creators happy.
Absolutely. You mentioned the future there. Just to kind of wrap up, unfortunately we're running out of time. I kind of wanted to just ask you all, what are your sort of hopes for the future of this industry? What would you, if you could sort of pick one thing that TV and film can be doing to make a difference, to keep telling stories, to keep changing narratives, what is your kind of hope? Are you hopeful for what's coming ahead and the role that the media can play in that?
Hopeful of the role of TV, you mean? Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not just TV in today's world. Sorry, Netflix. I mean, it mostly is. But I would hope, obviously generations have lived on stories, since civilization. So I hope that the power of storytelling will still survive, and you will tell the stories that are interesting and that have the most impact. And so I can't see that changing. Whether they're shorter, maybe I can see that world. But as long as people are telling interesting stories that resonate and that change minds and move hearts, I'm happy.
Nice.
Yeah, I think if I had a hope, I would say to switch some of the way in which we allocate the value or currency within our industry away from celebrity and towards issue and cause. Because I believe that there's data to prove that people really do want to go to see something because of what it's talking about and not just who's flopping their lips about it. So I do hope that we can redistribute some of the way in which we decide a movie has potential or value or not. And I also think getting people to know that if they have I live in a state in the United States, Utah, where the Great Salt Lake is now becoming a terminal lake. And what you find is young people are now wanting to talk about it. And I think encouraging young people in their lives to adopt the ancient art of storytelling and to be curious and not be so self-referential and just to maybe turn their cameras around and look at the world around them. Yeah, that's I guess one of the things that I would hope.
That's nice.
That's great, because I don't know how to take a selfie anyway, so that works well for me.
My kids do, though.
My children do. When we started this 4 years ago, which admittedly was far too late, and we fully own that, we really started from scratch. We didn't know how to decarbonize a production, and yet we had hundreds of them around the world happening all at once. The fact that now every single Netflix-managed production has clean mobile power and electric or low-carbon vehicles is a beachhead. It is not solved by any stretch of the imagination, but what that means is we've been able to convince the production management, the crew, even the directors, that this technology, while new, is not scary. In fact, it's operationally beautiful. They can think straight. We hear from the crew all the time, oh my goodness, my catering no longer tastes like fumes. Can you imagine?
No.
We hear from the directors of Ransom Canyon, which is the #1 show in the United States right now for us, that the directors can hear the birds chirping in the evening when they're giving each other notes. we hear from the crew that they're actually saving time and money and then go home early because they don't have to cable as much technology. So it's all about an adoption curve and ensuring that the embrace is wide and deep, rather than the beachhead that we currently have, which is shallow but wide. But the fact that that can happen in 4 years without any top-down mandate is kind of remarkable. And then the last thing is the fact that of our 300 million households around the world, at least 80% have watched at least one title in the Sustainability Stories collection. I'll leave you to do the math because I'm jet-lagged. But that is a lot of people asking for these stories.
Go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, one of the things that I think needs to happen is encouraging is to get the data that even if you're not going to do these kind of sustainability models for the right reasons, do it for the smart reasons. Like to look at the efficiencies of employing some of these things in your sets and how producers are saving money, because that's how I think a lot of these initiatives will start to spread.
I was going to ask you that because you directed quite a lot of stuff. Is that true that that helps your job as well as being good for the environment? It's good for the production budgets.
Yes, absolutely.
More money on screen.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and when you look at some of just the juggling of waste that happens on set, whether it's food or whether it's water bottles or the way the energy is spent, and the amount of time people are sort of trying to quiet their brains, that is time spent other places than creating a wonderful performance.
A fascinating panel. Thank you, ladies, for your time. Give it up for our lovely panel this afternoon. And thank you for being with us as well. Thank you. That's sadly it from us. Juliet is up next. I'll hand over to her. Enjoy your afternoon and we'll see you soon. Thank you.